Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. I am your host, Chase Yantz, and alongside me, Brady King. How we doing, Brady?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing all right. This is our
Good.
first episode. We've done next to each other, actually, so a little bit of a switch up here. And we got to welcome in a special guest tonight from Halftime Hoops and Reek Knows Hoops. We got Tyrik Hutchinson. Tyrik, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How y'all doing tonight?
Doing pretty
Doing
good.
great. Thanks for coming on.
For sure. Quick question: Did you used to hoop at Graham, Brady?
I did not, but there's a dude with the same exact name that hooped the Graham. Yeah.
Okay, that's why I was like, hold on,
Yeah.
I heard that name before. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, common misconception
Yeah,
around
yeah.
the area. So, all good, all good. But tell us a little bit about the page and all that stuff, Tyrik, if you would.
So Halftime Hoops, which is what you mentioned first, is basically a social media brand. It's like a news outlet that me and my friend Jamil Cosby set up about, I think, 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago. It's basically just getting NBA news and highlights out to everybody, just a different way for people to consume the game. And Reek Knows Hoops is a personal YouTube channel I started for myself. It's kind of like a podcast type platform. Just basically me giving my thoughts about what's going on in the NBA world, because there's always something going on in basketball. So, I just thought it was a good way to just start, help kind of boost my journalism career a little bit and just see where it takes me.
That's cool. That's cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, and you did some stuff over at you got some stuff going on over Ohio State, actually, right?
Yeah, so I am the social media editor for the Lantern, which is the student newspaper at Ohio State.
Okay.
I actually just started that position the 1st of May, so pretty new, exciting little thing going on.
That's good to hear, though.
That's
Yeah, I remember
good,
keeping up with all that. So
I've heard of that for sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate
We're
that.
big Ohio State fans, so they try to keep up with all that. But yep, that's cool
Most
though.
definitely.
But we'll try to get in a little bit of a dive. But yes, go check out Reek Knows Hoops, Halftime Hoops. Go follow, subscribe, all their pages and stuff like that. But we're gonna dive right into this NBA Finals preview, 2022 Finals. We got a pretty good matchup and all that stuff. I think some people, as it kind of boiled down inside the semifinals and all that stuff, conference semifinals, that they could kind of see this matchup of Celtics Warriors come about.
Right.
But what do you see as like the outside perspective of this whole matchup, like just as a whole?
Well, as a Celtics fan, I kind of wanted this matchup because I think the two teams match up really well. Obviously, Golden State has a lot of championship experience, a lot of playoff experience, and they've been rolling in this postseason so far. But I think as far as matchups go, the two teams, I think, coincide really well with each other. Just as far as like defensively, these are the two top teams in the NBA. We obviously have the star power with Steph, Jason Tatum. Then they got great supporting guys like Klay Thompson, Jaylen Brown. We see the heart and souls of the team and Draymond Green, Marcus Smart. Two very similar teams. It's just a fact of one team had kind of a smooth path to the finals, and then the Celtics in their own hands had like probably the most difficult path to the finals that any team has had to face this season. So it's gonna be I hope it's a good series. I hope it's a very competitive series. I see a lot of people saying like Warriors in 4, Warriors in 5. I hope it's not that. I know I could see it being more of a 6 or 7 game series potentially.
Yeah, both teams have like a heavyweight, like they both have heavyweight players and all that stuff. Like obviously talk about the star power, of Steph and Klay and all them, and emerging stars on their teams. Like Andrew Wiggins has played really well this postseason, and Jordan Poole as well. And then you got the Celtics, obviously, like they're, you got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart as well, Al Horford, and Robert Williams as well. Like there's a bunch of star power, but there's not really like I'd say a weak spot that's just like here or there against both of these teams and all that stuff. So, this should be a pretty nice matchup for the finals and all that. And I don't expect it to be anything of 4 or 5 games or anything like that.
No, for sure. I just think like the big thing is obviously just the Warriors have so much experience, and the Celtics kind of have to grow up a little faster than maybe they want to, because we just saw in that game 7, they almost blew it. Like it was very close to them not being in this position because they were just being careless at the end of the game. So they kind of have to grow it fast. They can't have those lapses against the Warriors because they're too experienced, they're too seasoned, and they've been here way too many times to like not be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Exactly. And we think about the Warriors, like I think this is their 6th finals appearance in, I believe, 8 or 9 years now, if you think about it correctly. But Steph and Clay and Draymond, all of them, they've won 3. Ben, obviously been to the previous 5 before. Played LeBron in 4 of those 5. So, this is obviously a little different playing against the, younger version like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and all of them. But, looking at postseason stats, you got Steph Curry averaging like 26.9 points a game. I'll put the stuff up on the screen right now, but averaging like 26 points a game, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. He's been doing a lot, but the emergence of Jordan Poole has been a really big thing. What are your thoughts on Jordan Poole as a player? If you've got any.
Yeah, I tell my friend this all the time because he's a Michigan fan in both football and basketball, and I just remember watching Jordan Poole at Michigan, and I always tell him like I never imagined his game being this way because he was really just a shooter at Michigan. He had a little bit in his bag, but it wasn't nothing crazy. But I think the time that he had, not only in the G League, but just playing behind Steph Curry and then getting to play with Steph Curry last year, I think that's really helped his game grow. So now where some nights he can be their best offensive player. And you watch him, he moves a lot like Steph. Like he doesn't stop moving without the ball. Pretty above average playmaker. And then, there's some nights where he does struggle because he's a very streaky player. But then there's some nights where he can give you 30, 35 points. He's been a big reason for this team in this playoff run. Like the first round series, he was probably their best player, offensively speaking. Yeah. And I saw somebody earlier today saying like he might be the key to this series. And, that's a pretty good point because if he's on, they're going to be very tough for the Celtics to beat them. But if you can help limit Jordan Poole, then the Celtics will have a chance. I think he could be the X factor for the Warriors this series.
Definitely could be.
I can see that too. I mean, he's averaging 18.4 points a game, basically 4 and 4 with rebounds and assists and all that. So, and obviously he had some of those real big games in the first series against the Nuggets throughout this entire postseason. It's kind of had a cycle and all that stuff. They had the Jordan, I saw the Jordan Poole cycle, or whatever. Like he played really good, all that stuff. Some people call him next coming of Christ, and then he be real bad, and then have that prove myself mentality and all that stuff, and then go back to playing really well and all that. But if he just finds that consistency line and all that stuff, he hit some big shots against the Mavericks this year. I remember Game 3 for sure. He hit a big shot down the stretch. Once the Warriors were kind of pulling away, but the Mavericks started coming back. But Poole hit a big 3 in that one. But then you also got Klay Thompson coming back from injury this year. So there's been a lot of talk about that, and the emergence of Andrew Wiggins. He averaging 16 points a game this postseason and all that. But and obviously Steph Curry, the head of it all. What is that nucleus to the Warriors? Just what makes them so special?
I think it's chemistry. I think that's what makes them so special, man. I mean, you just watch when they have guys that fit their system, their offense is so beautiful to watch. Love or hate the Warriors, you're gonna enjoy watching that brand of basketball. And I'm so glad to see just them healthy again. But Klay Thompson, he's always been one of my guys. I've always really appreciated Klay Thompson as a basketball player. After everything he's gone through, I love seeing that he's getting maybe not back to that level that Klay really was, because he was one of the best shooting guards in the league, but he's still getting back to being a very, very good player, and just exactly what the Warriors need, to where some nights in closeout games, he's their best player offensively. I'm just happy to see him back, and I think that's really helped change the dynamic of this team a lot, because that was my big question of them going into the postseason, which was how big is Klay going to play? Is he going to be close to old Klay Thompson, or is he going to be kind of what he was in the regular season, kind of iffy, inconsistent? I think he's been closer towards the old Klay Thompson than what we saw during portions of the regular season. And, outside of that, we know what Draymond's going to give you. He's the glue guy to this team. I've been very impressed. You mentioned Wiggins earlier. I always think Wiggins has been this type of player, but I just think he's found his perfect role, being the third, fourth guy, playing elite defense, rebounding the basketball, and just getting the shots within the flow of the offense. And then also Kevon Looney has been big time. There's been some nights where, he's really dominated the game just from a rebounding aspect. So the Warriors got it going. I would say I was kind of surprised, not that they made the finals, but I definitely had my doubts about this team, but they proved me wrong. And that's the good thing about, having a platform, having an opinion. You're going to be wrong sometimes. So, I'm glad to see that they were able to do that.
Exactly.
For sure.
And you think about it, Curry, Thompson, Poole as their guy scoring all stuff. And Andrew Wiggins, obviously he was in Minnesota and all that, and, never really got, he was the number 1 pick, in Cleveland, got to Minnesota.
It's crazy that he played college ball with Joel Embiid, and he was the guy But like obviously Embiid was great, but like the talk was Wiggins is going to be this next superstar, and then we're here today, and Embiid's the guy that's like in the MVP talks, and some people think he should have won, which maybe he should have. I don't watch as much regular season NBA as NBA. I'm more of the playoffs because I'm more of a college guy. But like what I've seen from Embiid, like Wiggins, the improvement over the years has been insane. Because people were labeling him as a complete bust, it seemed like in Minnesota, but just now he's turned it on and is a good player on a finals team.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, in Minnesota, he was probably like he was putting up more points per game and stuff, but you just didn't see that fire that he kind of has now, and just that impact of winning basketball. And it's crazy you bring up his college days, because there's probably old tweets on my Twitter account of me saying Jabari Parker is better than Andrew Wiggins.
I forgot about
truly believed it at the time. But I mean, as time went on, Wiggins has been able to withstand. And, now he's in a position to be like a viable piece to a championship team. If you told people that maybe like even 3 years ago, I don't think anybody would have really believed it. But I'm happy because Wiggins is somebody that I've always still pulled for, because I feel like he did get a lot of like criticism. And he just seemed like the type of guy that shouldn't have to deal with that. But I'm glad to see that he's in this position that he is now.
For sure. And it's funny you mentioned like Jabari Parker. Like I'm a pretty big North Carolina basketball fan, and you are too, yeah. But I'd always be like worried when we played Jabari Parker back in like 2013, and I remember Marcus Page had that insane second half at Duke to come back, and we kind of pulled that game out, but. Jabari was something else that year. There's no doubt about it.
Nah, as a Carolina fan, like I hate Duke so much, but if they have a great player, I will give them their credit. I will give them their flowers. And I'll say this: I was watching a lot of Duke basketball that year because Jabari Parker was just that good. He was just so fun to watch, man.
He was really fun, and there's a lot of Duke players that I genuinely just don't like. But he wasn't one of them. And same with like Zion. I never really hated Zion or any of those dudes. But like Grayson Allen, can't stand him.
Oh yeah,
guys like that, like can't stand him. But yeah, this year there was nothing better than winning that Final Four game against Duke.
Hey, I wish we would have finished the job, but
me too.
Beating Coach K his last two losses, being the UNC, was pretty sweet at the same time.
I'll take it. I was really, really disappointed at the time because I thought we had it in the bag at halftime, But after I was just reflecting on everything, great season.
Most definitely. Yep.
Starting off at an 8 seed and all that stuff and making that run. I mean, once you guys beat Baylor, it was just like, you guys didn't do anything, honestly.
Right.
Not for real.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like talking about, we got to do like a college basketball North Carolina episode for you guys. Like, I don't know, down the road. I don't really
I'll be
care.
down.
We can do that
I'll be down for that.
For sure. Like, next fall and all that stuff. But yeah.
I'm definitely down.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, when you talking about Wiggins and all that, think about it, being in Minnesota and all that stuff, like the amount of, I wouldn't say exposure, but like a city like San Francisco, they obviously have like the publicity rate and all that stuff. Like you're gonna get more publicity out there in San Francisco, and obviously being on the Warriors and all that, you're gonna be on TV like every night. And Minnesota, they kind of shunned him and all that stuff, even if he was averaging more points than he is now and all that. He obviously wasn't getting as much credit or what his attitude might have been and all that stuff in Minnesota. But to see him kind of, re-energize his game, not revitalize, but re-energize his game has been something pretty amazing to see.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, a lot of times I think this goes like for not just basketball, but maybe all sports. Sometimes a guy just needs to change the scenery. And just, sometimes you got to be in the right situation at the right time. And I feel like that's what Wiggins has found with the Warriors. And he's bought in. Draymond has done a good job pushing him. Steve Kerr has done a good job pushing him. And this is what the Warriors do, man. They find guys that fit their system. And that's why they've been to 6 finals and basically 6 playoff appearances, because they had the 2 years where they didn't make it. That's why they find guys that fit their system. They may not be the most talented guys. They may not be the all-star guys, but they fit their system. They're going to do their job, and they're going to help win a lot of basketball games.
Yeah, Steve Kerr has built something up there, and like everything has just been centered around Curry, and I love it. I think Curry people used to like hate on him so much, but like and so did I. I'm not even gonna lie, but now I've just come to respect him so much, and I think he's one of the best players ever. Like hands down, like he's up there in like the top 10 to 15 range, in my opinion.
Not for sure. I see a lot of people saying if he wins this championship, he's top 10. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't really get into all-time lists for real, but there's good conversations sometimes. Like that's something that could be debatable for sure. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough list to debate, though. Obviously, when you think about different eras and all that stuff, obviously, like, how some players wouldn't last in the 90s and all that stuff, and how some players' games in the 90s wouldn't be different for now. And then, obviously, you think about the 60s and all that stuff.
And then Wilt Chamberlain's impossible to rank because he was unbelievable. He was the most dominant player maybe ever, but, like, he was playing against dudes that were, like not as tall.
And all that stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
So there's just a lot of, the balancing scales are kind of, like, off and all that stuff, but it is fun conversation, and you can also have good conversation about all that stuff, ranking all-time NBA lists and all that. But I mean, Steph wins this thing. I mean, if he's not already, he could be the greatest point guard of all time.
I don't see any problem with it.
It could be a real debate if he gets 4 championships, especially if he gets that Finals MVP, which is probably the one thing that's lacking on his resume. But if he gets the Finals MVP, man, the 2 MVPs already. He'll probably hit 30,000 points at some time. Already the best 3-point shooter ever.
Right.
It's a good argument. It definitely is a good argument for sure.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So there's a lot on the table for Steph. I mean, I wouldn't say, crazy pressure because he's already had an immaculate career and everything. But just to add one more thing to it, 1 or 2 more things to it would just make everything better for him. But and then even look at like Kevon Looney. Think of the impact that he's had with all these guards and all that stuff for the Warriors of, everybody's like, drive, kick, score and all that. But Kevon Looney's been getting a bunch of rebounds and rim protecting this entire time. And the one game, I think he had, I forget which game it was. It might have been the Grizzlies series, I think, where he had like 21 rebounds, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like he's had a really big impact just as like, just doing his job. And that's what we talk about the Warriors, having some guys that just do their jobs and they don't have to score all the time.
Yeah, I was halfway joking with some of the homies, but I was actually kind of being a little serious. I thought he should have won that conference finals MVP. I mean, dude, his impact on the boards has been game changing. There were a lot of those games in that Mavs series that could have easily went the Mavericks' way, but he was getting a lot of offensive rebounds. And it's just crazy to see like his game be like this now, because there was a couple years ago where he couldn't really be on the court because he was just so hurt, and he would try and play through pain. But I mean, it's crazy. I still can't get over the fact that he's only 26 years old, which is just insane to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. It's crazy, man. I'm glad to see, because off season, all the talks was like Miles Turner, Sabonis. We've heard the Karl Anthony Towns rumors before, but he's just in there doing his job for not a lot of money, and he's getting it done, and he's doing all the dirty work, which you just love to see, man. He's definitely been a very key piece to this championship run.
Oh yeah, the thing you think about, the people forget about. I forgot about too, just until you talked about those rumors. James Wiseman.
Exactly. Yeah. Not even needed, not even really needed.
Exactly. And like, I will say, okay, before I get slack, I am a Warriors fan. Okay. I'm not as big as a Warriors fan as I am like a Bengals fan or whatever. That's a different topic for another day. But like the Warriors, like, think about it, they've had some guys that have just been able to step in, like big guys that have been able to step in and just do their job. Think about like during their finals runs, Andrew Bogut. I remember like that another big guy, Festus Ezeli. You remember that name?
Yep. JaVale McGee.
JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia. There's just I remember Zaza specifically, but yes. But they've had a bunch of guys who've been able to step in and just, even get their 6-7 points, just and control the board and all that stuff. So they've done a pretty good job of that overall.
Yeah, the front office is, like we said, just does a good job of getting guys in there that just do their job and do it to a very high level. They're stars in their role. And they just get the job done. That's why they've won so many championships, and they're always there at the end.
Exactly. They always seem to find a way to get to the finish line and all that. But now we'll shift the role to your Celtics and all that. So they've had like we talked about the Warriors having a smoother road to the finals and all that, and a smoother season. But just as a Celtics fan, what were your thoughts just piecing everything together from the blown leads at the start and the middle of the season, playing well in these stretches, and being able to rebound off playoff losses and all that? What's the whole picture look like, Tyrik?
I think the best way to describe it is it was a roller coaster of a year because I mean, from the first game, like the game against the Knicks early in the regular season was just a wild game, and
Mhm.
that was like the theme of the season, just craziness. Like you mentioned, the blown leads were so frustrating because it was clear the team had the talent. It was just they were struggling with piecing everything together. Um, I remember games against the Chicago Bulls. We blew like a 19-point lead. I think we blew a 21 against the Knicks. Blew a lead on Christmas against the Bucks. It was just like lead after lead after lead, which was very frustrating, man. And then at some point, I think just as soon as January 1st hit, everything clicked. Like the energy really did shift. I remember Jaylen Brown tweeting about that. And since then, they've been like one of the best defensive teams of all time. Best defensive team this season by a good amount. They've been holding teams to under 100 points a lot, like regular season and playoffs, which defense obviously wins championships. And that was, I think, the biggest struggle for them early in the season was just getting a lot of stops when they needed it. But everything shifted. They made the Derek White trade at the trade deadline. Also getting Daniel Tice back, just getting some depth. I think those were big moves by Brad Stevens. And then everybody just buying into what Ime Udoka, first-year head coach, has been preaching, and that's we want to be a defensive team. We want to be a defensive team. And I think it took guys a while to really buy into it, but now you see them, they're really like listening to Ime. I think he really has these guys' attention, and that's why they were able to, not smoothly get to the finals, but they got there. And a lot of people counted them out, like even in their first round series against the Nets. And they handled business. They swept Brooklyn, which a lot of people did not expect. I didn't expect that. And then, even through the Bucks series, being down 3-2, then we see the growth of Jason Tatum, which has been big. Him going to Milwaukee, dropping 46 points was big time. And then this series, I mean, I'll admit, like, I thought it would be tough for them to win in game 7 after the way they blew game 6.
Yeah.
But they have shown a lot of resilience. I think that's a testament to what they went through early on in the season. And they're a good team, like, when the pressure's on them. I'll say that much. Like, they haven't lost back-to-back games all postseason, which is a good sign. And it seems like when everybody counts them out, that's the games that they win. So it's been a crazy run. I definitely did not expect this team to be in the finals. I think even before the playoffs, I didn't really expect it. Obviously, injury luck did play a little part in them having a easier path. But at the end of the day, you still got to win those games. Still got to get to the finals. And I think this is a good step forward. But, you want to finish the job, though. You don't just want to be happy being in the finals. Yeah. So we'll see how this goes, man. But I am just happy that this team was finally able to break through that conference finals wall, because it seems like we've been knocking at it for so many years. But we finally got through.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the first finals appearance since you guys played Kobe Bryant as last title, I believe.
2010.
Mm-hmm. I definitely remember that. That went 7 games, I believe.
It went 7 games. I think we had a 13-point lead in that game, and we blew it. And Kobe didn't even have a good shooting game. Rest in peace to the Mamba, but he did not have a good shooting game.
Yep, I still remember. I remember Meta World Peace hit that 1-3 and all that. And it's just kind of,
Yeah, that was a dagger for sure. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean the Celtics. It seems like they've always been knocking at that door the last decade and everything. But to finally break through it, it's like, hey, we're already here. We might as well just try to win this thing. That's exactly. I mean, that's what any team should be going through. But yeah, Jason Tatum, 27 points a game. Jaylen Brown, 23. This is postseason talk. But just, I think a thing that really impresses me with Jason Tatum is just the ability to make tough shots. I mean, he's like 6'9" or whatever, but just consistency of making tough shots that's what stood out to me. I've watched, I haven't watched a ton of like a ton of full games, stuff like that in the playoffs, because, I'll be doing other stuff, but I have watched a good amount of the playoffs. But just the amount of tough shots Jason Tatum can just pull up and make from 15, 20, 25 feet out has just been insane.
Yeah, that's the beauty and the curse of his game, because I've been very adamant. There's videos on my channel of me really just criticizing his shot selection at times, because he has the ability to like be like a MVP, scoring champ, all that, like finals MVP. He has that ability, but it was just certain times, like early on in his career, even early on this season, he would just settle for the tough shots too much. Yeah. And I think the biggest change in this game is just making this game a little more simple, becoming a better playmaker as well, getting to the basket more, trying to get to the free throw line more. I think that's really elevated this game, and I think that's made the tough shots a little more easier, because now he hits the timely tough shots, the ones that, you're going to have to take to win playoff games. And we saw evidence of that in game 7. He hit 2 really big shots. He hit the one on the baseline out of bounds over Jimmy Butler. Then he hit the side step 3 from the left wing. Like, those were big time, tough shots. But like you said, his ability to do that is second to none. He's one of the best in the world at it. But really his individual growth just as an all-around basketball player has been a beautiful thing to watch. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why this team is in this position. Because there's been certain nights where he's having a bad shooting night. Like I remember one game against the Nets, he didn't have a good shooting night, but he was still the best player on the floor because he was playmaking, he was defending, he was getting rebounds, he's doing all that. So I think just his growth as a 24-year-old superstar has been key for the Celtics team.
Exactly. And I mean, you talk about that Nets series and all that stuff. I mean, everyone in the world knew he outplayed KD. Okay, like KD just had a bad, he had a terrible shooting series, but Jason Tatum just backed it up by playing well, playing good, playing good defense and all that stuff. I'm not really sure. Was he the primary defender on KD that entire series, or most?
For the most part, yes, he was.
Okay. I thought so because he just had a significantly better series than Kevin Durant. I remember that, and then obviously, I remember Game 6 against the Bucks. Wow. I mean, we went for what was it, 46, I believe.
Yep, 46.
Man, like he's come up big when their backs are against the wall. He has come up huge and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that was one game where I kind of caved in. I was like, I don't think there's really any chance that we win this game. And then fourth quarter, he just started. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what was said to him at the end of the third, but he started making everything, and his shots wasn't even touching the rim. Like they were all greens, bro. Like that was one of the. We've seen a lot of great performances just this playoffs. Like we saw Jimmy's Game 6 was incredible, but that game, man, I feel like if they win the championship, that game is going to be cemented, and they're going to talk about that Game 6 in Milwaukee, not in the same light as like a LeBron Game 6 in Boston, but it's kind of like near that pedestal. Like that's how incredible that game was for him.
I agree. I didn't really watch a whole lot of that game, but I kept keeping up with it because I remember I was out. But I kept keeping up with that and just seeing Tatum makes this, Tatum makes that, just the updates. I was like, oh my gosh, he just cannot miss right now. This is insane. But we've seen like in this postseason time after time and all that stuff, and he's just been able to really back it up. And then we look at the supporting cast of Jaylen Brown giving a quiet 23 points a night. And Marcus Smart's become a little bit of a scoring threat as well, and really good facilitator of the ball, 6.2 assists per game this playoffs, and I think the 2.2 turnovers. So he's done a very good job of protecting the basketball and making big plays when needed.
Yeah, one of the concerns I had with the Celtics was the 3-point shooting. I didn't know if they would be able to shoot well enough in the half court to really like make a deep playoff run. But they've been one of the best shooting teams in the postseason. Like the Bucks series, they made 110 threes in that series alone. I think that's been key, man. Grant Williams, Al Horford been knocking down shots. You mentioned Marcus Smart. Brown and Tatum have both shot pretty well from three. At least the eye test tells me that. So I think that's been a key difference. And yeah, I think guys' ability to bounce back is Jaylen Brown. Even though he was the leading scorer last series, he had a tough series. He was turning the ball over a lot, but he never wavered. Like he would always come back and make plays. And he was really big, especially in the fourth quarter of Game 7. And even Marcus Smart, even though he has his moments where he just has completely crazy mind lapses, he's the heart and soul, man. He's big. And when he's giving you like a couple threes a game, playing elite defense, he's defensive player of the year for a reason. Yep. And then throwing in the playmaking, which is much improved as well. It's a great supporting cast. And that's why I think like these two teams with them and the Warriors match up so well because they're just so well-rounded. So it's going to be a fun series, man. I think we're going to be in for a very exciting one.
Can't wait to get the popcorn ready for this one. But yes, you talk about Marcus Smart. I don't even know how I forgot to mention the DPOY and all that stuff. But like talk about the impact of what he missed one of the first games of the series, I believe, right? Did he miss Game 1?
Yeah, he missed Game 2 against the Bucks, and he missed I think Game 1 against the Heat, and then he missed Game 4 or 5. I think Game 4 against the Heat. So yeah, he's missed a few games this postseason.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I still remember, obviously, from being DPOY, like the big impact loss they've had, and Jimmy Butler, having some, ridiculous nights to say the least, and all that. But I mean, Butler was throwing punch for punch with you guys, but just the Celtics just being able to, just have that wall up and just continue to come back punch after punch that he was throwing, and be that resilient. The resilience is the number one thing with the Celtics right now that I think we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good word because people forget like Jimmy Butler was going toe to toe with LeBron in the finals. Like people forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I was saying, like, my biggest thing about, like, especially after that game 6, like, you can't give Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat life because they have championship heart. And that's something that you can't really teach. You kind of have to grow into that. And I think the Celtics being able to win that game 7 showed like they do got some championship heart, and there's just, do you have as much as the Warriors? I think that's the big question. Between that and the experience, that's a lot to make up for.
Exactly. And that, we even think about like a guy like Al Horford. This is the first time he's been to a finals. He's, he was a winner back in college, won back-to-back national titles. He's finally getting a chance to break that conference finals wall himself. And then, obviously these young superstars are getting a chance too. So they're all going to be, in for a little bit of a different environment. But if they can collectively come together as a group, anything can happen. That's how you see first-time team champions come about. Like, they all collectively come together and they're able to just weather a storm. Obviously, the Golden State Warriors are a little bit different when it comes to having stars and them taking in younger guys and being like, okay, expect this. You can expect this. You can expect that and all that. So, like, the differences in the clash and all that are gonna be really interesting to see, especially in game 1 and game 2. I didn't say game 1 and game 3 when it comes to both teams having their home crowds in their first matchups. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always think game 1s. Typically, you don't really learn too much because it's more of like a feel-out game. It's like, okay, let's see what coverage they're going to throw at Curry. Let's see how they're going to play the pick and roll when Tatum has the ball. You don't really learn too much from game 1s. You might learn a little bit, but I think like every game after that, every moment, every possession after that, you'll learn a lot about this series. You'll learn what works and what does not work, and we'll see which coaches have the guts to make the risky adjustments. That's another thing that I think is kind of like not being overlooked, but this is Ime Udoka's first playoff run. This is his first NBA Finals, and Steve Kerr's played in a lot of NBA Finals. He's coached now his 6 finals, so he has a lot of experience. And experience is one thing that you really can't make up for. Like, sometimes you just have to go through stuff to really know what it's about, and that's what's big. I mean, the Warriors have so much experience, and the Celtics have no finals experience at all on this roster. So it's a big time difference, man. I think, that's, in my eyes, that's probably the biggest like factor in this series. That's why, like, when I make my pick, I'm factoring in the experience that much because it means a lot. Like, you cannot coach finals experience. Like, you just have to go through it.
Yep, it can be a growing pain and all that stuff, and just depends on how long the growing pain can be. It could be a game or two. It could be, hopefully not an entire series, but it can take a little bit of time and all that. But once those players are able to break out of it, then that's what also separates good teams from great teams and all that. So that will be really interesting when you look at that. Now we're going to go into some key matchups. Key matchups in this series. What do you think is a key matchup of yours? When it comes to the Celtics and Warriors, players wise.
I think the most obvious one. Well, I'm gonna say the most obvious too, because I think it's gonna be the Tatum matchup. If he does have Andrew Wiggins, I think that's probably the one key. And then, however, the Celtics decide to guard Steph Curry, I think it's going to be a lot of Marcus Smart and Derek White. So those guys are going to have their hands full chasing Steph Curry around for 48 minutes. Like, that's not going to be an easy task. I think those are probably the main 2 matchups that I'm looking forward to. Wiggins has taken on that matchup, pretty well. He did a pretty solid job against Luka. Luka's going to get his, but I think Wiggins did a good job making him work and not making it an easy 35, 40 points. It was a tough 35, 40 points. So I think that's a big matchup. Obviously, getting Gary Payton back, so being able to throw him at some Tatum sometimes, Brown sometimes is going to be key. But I think, in my eyes, one of the biggest is going to be the front line of the Warriors against the front line of the Celtics. I think what the Warriors have thrived at is dominating the offensive wars with Wiggins, Looney, Draymond Green. I don't think they'll be able to do that as much against the Celtics team because they are the bigger team. They have Rob Williams, they have Grant Williams, they have Al Horford. You can throw Tyson there if you want to. Like, they got the big bodies to match up and not, get killed in the rebounding battle. And I think the last thing I want to mention is turnovers. Both of these teams are big on turnovers. The Celtics, especially in this last series, were very careless with the basketball. And notoriously, the Warriors have always been a team that's been very careless with the basketball. They're just that great that they can make up for it. But I think turnovers is probably going to be the next biggest key for me in this series.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you will see the Warriors, like, they'll get a little a little flashy with the ball and all that stuff, and then they'll be like, we turn it over, it's all right. They get back on defense, they'll come back up and make up with the three and all that. So they kind of, I wouldn't say like they play a little flashy, but then at the same time, they work the ball around so good and all that. And the Celtics, also talking about the front line, that is something that this is a good matchup series for both teams. But that's something as a Warriors fan that kind of concerns me, is the fact that the Celtics are able to just rotate bodies in and out and all that with the front line, with their front court. Robert Williams, that's such a big impact, and Al Horford, I know it's his first finals, but still having experience, as a 15-year veteran or whatever, and then Grant Williams as well has played pretty well this postseason. So just the rotation that the Celtics will have in their front court will be something to keep an eye on against, guys like Kevon Looney and, even Draymond Green and all that. So, yeah, I completely agree with that. And Curry versus Smart, you think about it. Curry, the shooter, Smart, the DPOY. That will be interesting to see the rotations and all that. That will be interesting to see if Smart's able to frustrate Curry. That will be interesting to see if Curry's able to consistently make shots.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big matchup, man. Because they're the best of the best at what they do. I mean, Curry's the best point guard in the world, and Marcus Smart's defensive player of the year. So I guess right now his title is best defensive player, or at least defensive guard in the world. So that's a good matchup. I'll just be interested to see how they attack that. I always think the best defense for Steph Curry is to try and get him to work on the defensive side of the floor. But that's why I didn't really mention that in key matchups, because the Warriors do such a good job at hiding him on defense, him and Jordan Poole, because they're both exploitable. But they do such a good job of just, hedging those pick and rolls, getting back and recovering. Like, they do that better than any team I've really ever seen. So, if they can if the Celtics can isolate Curry at times, get him switched on to Brown, Tatum, that could really help their case. But I haven't seen anybody be able to do it. So it's going to be a big ask of the Celtics to do that. And on the other side, you mentioned like just the Celtics don't really have any weaknesses defensively. Like, there's nobody that they can really single out and attack. That's why, the Warriors small ball lineup has been deadly, but it doesn't concern me as much because I know Rob Williams can get out and defend on the perimeter. I know Al Horford can do it. And then if you want to run small, you can run Grant Williams at the 5. Like, both of these teams got so many different chess pieces that they can move around the board. That's why I just think it's going to be an interesting series, but it's tough one. It's a tough one to call at the same time, though, because Golden State has been in too many situations like this before. Like, they've seen everything that you could ask. They've seen LeBron. They've been up 3-1. They've been down 3-1, came back, gave up a lead. They've done everything that you can ask. So they have all the experience in the world, man. But the Celtics got to gain that experience somehow, though. I think that's my word of this podcast is experience, because that's one of the biggest factors.
Right.
You got anything to add, Brady?
Oh, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be two storied franchises going at it in the finals. What more can you ask for?
Yeah, I saw a picture like the last time these teams played in the finals. Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain were on the court.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's been a very long time, like almost 60 years. So it's been a long time coming for this matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, historic NBA fans will have a lot to say about this, and we'll have a lot of fun with this one too.
For sure.
But yeah, like on throwback hoops and all that. But yes, we come to that point of the show where we try to make our predictions. So I'm gonna give you the floor first, Tyrik. What do you think is gonna happen? Game 1, of course, and then just the series as a whole.
Okay, I think game 1 is probably the easiest to predict. I think the Warriors, they might blow the Celtics out. They've just had so much rest. And it's a game 1 at the Chase Center. The crowd is going to be rocking. They haven't seen finals basketball in a long time. Mm-hmm. So I think they're tailor-made to win that game. I've been wanting to pick the Celtics so bad. I've been really wanting to, but I can't let my fandom get the most of me. I've mentioned I just think they lack the experience, and they just have times where they just play bad basketball. Like, they just turn the ball over. They're not hitting shots, miscommunications on defense. Can't do that against Golden State, man. You really can't, because they're going to take advantage, and that's how you lose a game that easily in the finals. It only takes 4 losses to, not win a championship. So I think it's going to be a good series. I definitely don't think it's going to be a 4 or 5 game series like I see a lot of people saying. I think the Celtics have a chance. I think they can make it interesting, maybe push it to 6 or 7. But if I have to get my professional diagnostics of this series, I'm going to say Warriors in 6 games. I think they'll get it done in 6.
All right, Brady.
Right. Warriors in 6 has been my prediction ever since. Well, actually, I think he asked me or something a couple days ago. I remember I said Warriors in 6 because one of our a dude that we talked to about he doesn't even like NBA, but he just randomly said like Celtics in 5 or something, and he doesn't even like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I was like, man, I hope the Celtics win. I know he doesn't.
Yeah,
but I just feel like it'll be too much to overcome, and I think that I think it'll be a good series. I think it'll be competitive, and I think the Celtics definitely have a chance. And I could be wrong, but I just think the experience will overcome the Celtics and the Warriors in 6.
So with that, I'm gonna agree Warriors in 6. Okay, I just think the Warriors are gonna win game 1. All right, I think they'll win the first. I don't know though. I think they'll win the first 2. I think the South. Well, I'm so indecisive and all that stuff. All right, there's 2 days before the finals start and all that. Almost exactly 48 hours. I think it'll be 2-2 going back to the Chase Center. And that's where like the Warriors have kind of done their work and like I remember this as a game. I mean, the first series against the Cavs, it was 2-2 going back to Oracle Arena, and the Warriors won a very pivotal game 5, and then just took the extra step and won game 6 at Quicken Loans Arena. And I just think it's going to kind of happen like that. But I will say I have a prediction that all of these games will be inside of 11 points, random number, but I think all of these games will be inside of 11 points.
I hope so. I mean, if the Celtics are going to lose, I just hope it's at least a competitive, fun series for NBA fan experience because I'm going to be stressing out every single game.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But for the fan experience, I hope it's just a competitive series because I feel like a lot of people are just writing this finals off of, the Warriors are going to dominate. I just hope that's not the case. But y'all made great points. It's a lot to overcome. Like the Warriors have just been in every position that you could ask a championship team to be in. And the Celtics have not been in any of those positions in the NBA finals. I think that's just a big difference, man. And I mentioned very early in this podcast, like they have to grow up fast, and I don't think they'll be able to. I think this is a bad time to have to go through a lot of growing pains. So, it's going to be a good series, but I think Warriors in 6 is probably a good consensus.
Right. No, I agree.
Yep. And, I do this. I don't think this will be the Celtics' last time in this span that they'll be back. No. I don't think it will be. I think, I hope, I would say even like, I'm not a Celtics fan, but I would hope not because when the Celtics are good and, when those teams like the Celtics, Warriors, Bulls, Lakers, like those teams of, the past are good, it makes the NBA that much better, Like, obviously, think of stuff in the NFL, NBA, and all that stuff. Like, when those teams are good, it makes it a lot, it makes it more interesting and all that, especially for fans.
Yeah, it's so tough, though, because there's no guarantee that you ever get back to the NBA Finals.
It is. And, I'm a Bengals fan. I've literally been, like, in my mind, stuff talking about, oh, we'll be back. But then I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. Tough. It is to climb that mountain and fall down just so short is a gut punch, and the get back is if you're able to get back and like finally get to the top of that mountain, it's an unbelievable feeling. But, some people have trouble getting back up that mountain. So we'll see what happens with this whole series and all that. Maybe the Celtics prevail. Maybe they just go there. First off, who knows? Maybe the Warriors do it themselves again. But this is the end of the show. Do you have any final thoughts, Tyrik?
I hope I'm wrong as well. I hope the Celtics do pull this off. But just I appreciate you guys for allowing me to come onto the podcast, man. I'm definitely a big fan of y'all. Glad to see y'all continue to put out episodes, continue to grow. It's definitely I love to see that. And once again, I appreciate it, man, for sure. And, everybody subscribe to my YouTube, follow Halftime Hoops. Really appreciate that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely suggest you subscribe to him as well.
Exactly. Yes. And we really appreciate you coming on and all stuff. We kind of talked about this a little bit, on the socials and all that, but glad we can finally get this going. And, definitely not the last time we can get, definitely not the last time for an episode or anything like that. We appreciate you coming on though, Tyrik.
No, for sure. I appreciate y'all.
All right. So
Thank
yes,
you.
subscribe to his pages, Reek Knows Hoops, Halftime Hoops, Instagram, all that stuff. Subscribe to our pages. You got the stuff at the bottom of the screen, and we will see you guys some other time. I can't really say that, but yes, we'll see you guys some other time.
Yes, sir.
All right.